It is my pleasure now to introduce this year's commencement speaker. Maybe that's enough. Scientist, engineer, comedian, author, inventor. He is a man with a mission to help foster scientifically literate society and to help people everywhere understand and appreciate the science that makes our world work. Making science entertaining and accessible is something that Bill has been doing for most of his life. He graduated from Cornell with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, after which he moved to Seattle to work as an engineer with Boeing. It was there that he began to combine his love of science with his flair for comedy. Eventually, he made the transition from engineer to comedy writer and performer, and Bill Nye the Science Guy was born. The television program by that name would inspire an entire generation to become interested in science. And my guess is many of you are here this morning. How many of you remember were fans of the show? He won 7 Emmy Awards for writing, performing, and producing the show. The show won 18 Emmys in 5 years, including 7 for sound design, which was shared by UMass Lowell sound recording technology alum Tom McGurk, who's here with us today. He has since hosted 4 other television series and continued to educate, entertain, and fight for science's place in education and in our national conversations. His recent television appearances on the reality of danger of climate change and the importance of science education have included NBC's Meet the Press, CNN's Crossfire, Late Night with Seth Meyers, and last week, in a very, very funny piece, Tonight with John Oliver on HBO. It was a great piece. When we announced that Bill Nye would be here to address you, Boston Magazine called him the region's best commencement speaker. And the Today Show highlighted him as one of the 4 most interesting commencement speakers in the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our 2014 commencement speaker, Bill Nye.
I am not worthy. Thank you all so much. Distinguished faculty, parents, guests, alumni, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Riverhawks of all ages, and especially graduates, welcome and congratulations. You made it. Very nicely done. When I managed to get out of, when I was graduated, after those few relaxing, easy years in engineering school, our world was full of trouble. During my college years, we wound down a miserable war in Southeast Asia. We experienced an energy crisis in which people waited in their cars in long lines for fuel. Gasoline prices along the Lowell connector skyrocketed to over 50 cents a liter. It's $2 a gallon, everybody. Now, we're the last country. I'm hoping someday we'll get liters in gasoline as well as in other things. Back then, we were still in the throes of the disco era. We had leisure suits, the Chevy Vega, the Ford Pinto. I mean, everybody, these were things that no designer, no engineer, and especially no lawyer could be proud of. Now, we're in the depths of the most serious environmental crisis in human history. And in that, I include the most recent ice age, because things are happening faster than ever before. But I believe you all can help us avoid disaster. But I'm also hoping you can help us avoid another disco era. When my great-grandmother refused to let my grandmother go for a ride on the Wright brothers' new flying machine in College Park, Maryland, there were about 1 3/4 billion people in the world. During World War II, while my father worked a shovel in Japanese prisoner of war camp, and my mother was a Navy lieutenant and a cryptographer working to decipher the German Enigma code, our human population had risen significantly. It went from 1 3/4 to 2.3 billion, just a couple of decades. As a boy at the New York World's Fair in 1965, I remember well a very large display, a tote board, depicting the estimated human population of the world. It fascinated me. It was like the anticipation of watching the car's odometer change from 99,999 into 100,000 miles. And I say change, I mean it rolled. There was a mechanism in there. Mileage indicators back then had moving parts. But unlike a record turntable, you couldn't really use them to make music. For that, if you wanted music, you had to wait for the vacuum tubes to warm up. Older reference, lost on many of the younger listeners. While we were at the World's Fair, the world's population changed from 2,999,999,999 people in the world to 3 billion. 3 billion humans on Earth. Around Halloween of your sophomore year, we got to 7 billion. 7 billion people in the world. Today, there are about 129 million humans born every year, while about 53 million die every year. That means there are about 2 more people on our planet with every passing second. And by the time you all reach your billionth second here on Earth, when you're a little over 6 months into your 31st year, we will probably be over 9 billion, and perhaps well on our way to 12 billion humans on Earth. What this means is we are all part of the problem. We are all consuming resources. We are all part of the crisis of climate disruption. But your parents and I want you, especially, to create the solutions. And I dare say, change the world. I believe that if the graduates of 2014 go into the world ready for change, change will happen. So please, consider the following. Thank you. Reckoning our role in the growth of the world's population is one thing, but there's another thing. The world is changing in another way, a way reckoned not by the thousands of millions, but by the thousandths of thousands, the millionths. This year, we are officially over 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide above the Earth in our atmosphere. Our remarkable quality of life here in the developed world depends on electricity, much of which is made by burning old fuel, which produces carbon dioxide. And here's some very bad news, everybody. We will never run out of fossil fuels. We'll never use it all up, not for centuries. Sure, there is less oil, and less especially of that really sweet Appalachian crude than there ever used to be. But there is also oil sand and tar sand and oil shale, and soon it may be called by some new euphemism like shale tar. And of course, there are enormous quantities of coal, nothing but coal, everywhere, all over the world. And it was left here when there were no termites to chew it all up. Right now, no one pays for the smoke and the gas that burning coal creates. So people worldwide will just keep digging it up and keep burning it. Now, when I rode my bicycle to the first Earth Day on the National Mall in 1970, I locked my bike to a U.S. flagpole at the Washington Monument. I mean, Washington was a small town back then, and I celebrated that I had not produced any pollution, and because I had not driven a car. It seems a little hard to believe now, but here in the United States, along with rivers that caught on fire, we had air pollution so thick. How thick was it? It was so thick that it killed people in their sleep. That would still be happening. It would almost certainly be a great deal worse now if it were not for the people who fought for change. But with air quality regulations in place, lethal clouds of pollution don't happen here anymore. People in other parts of the world, in the factories of India and China, are facing the same problems and clamoring for the same kinds of improvement in their air. It is another opportunity for leadership. While toxic fogs are a thing of the past, coal emissions still cause about 200,000 premature deaths in the United States alone. It's hard to estimate how much bigger that number is elsewhere. Our fossil fuels are altering the climate of the world. Rising temperatures and shifting weather patterns bring their own dangers and enormous economic costs. Think how much work didn't get done because of the polar vortex. The grounded flights, the trains that didn't leave the stations, and the cars that wouldn't start. I mean, yes, you got to skip a few classes, but it was not cheap. What we need are new ways to provide electricity, new types of transportation, and new approaches to doing business. These will be the technologies and the ideas that you are going to create and we can export. Right now, the most difficult problems we face with regard to global warming are not the technical ones. Those are huge and challenging, to be sure, and I hope you get to work on them right away, like this afternoon. But even harder than the technological troubles are the political ones. As preposterous as it might sound to many of us, there are a great many people who claim that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by an international conspiracy of scientists and government officials. Oh, would but it were that simple. If there were a conspiracy, our path forward would be easy. None of us would be responsible for climate change. It would be those bad guys. All we'd have to do is expose them, and everything would be fine. But my friends, there is no such thing. Have you ever tried to get along with a bunch of scientists? I mean, they're at each other's throats and they're happy about it. I mean, climate change is happening because we are all using the atmosphere for chemical energy and as a place to dump our airborne carbon. It's a much more complicated problem than any that could be caused by a few misguided conspirators. Conspiracy theories are for lazy people, people that don't want to get down to business at hand. So everybody, please dismiss those ideas at once. The U.S. cannot wait for the others. We have to overcome the notion that since other large carbon dioxide emitters like China, Russia, and India have not come around to the idea of reducing emissions, then the United States in the class of 2014 shouldn't either. For me, this point of view is just heartbreaking. The United States leads the world in technology and in big ideas. We do not sit by and let other countries show us how to innovate. Workers in China and India will soon demand a higher quality of life along with more real income. We want you to show them how to make that happen. When you hear people saying that we do not need to lead, that we should wait until the rest of the world has taken action, stay calm and dismiss that argument at once. You have work to do. You have to get out there and change the world. Yes! As you may know, I spent an evening in eastern Kentucky this year debating a creationist who doesn't accept the scientific discoveries that we all embrace to run our society. Neither do he nor many of his followers believe in climate change. And not for any especially good reason. They just don't. And it would have been just a quaint encounter involving me and a man with very limited critical thinking skills. But he and his followers seem to control millions of dollars and a great deal of this country's politics. And they are not alone. Here in the United States, less than a third of our fellow citizens acknowledge the troubles that lie ahead. We have to engage them. We have to bring them around so that we can all get to work and, dare I say it, change the world. And I think we can. Here's why. We are at a tipping point. With just a little bit more education, with just a little bit more engagement, a little bit more discussion, with a few more hilarious comedy bits, people in the United States will join citizens of other countries and get to work on climate change. I want you to be ready. I want you to spark this movement and give it direction. I want you to change the world. Now, as an environmentalist, I'm a fan of wasting less. That would be common sense. I mean, if you drive less, we'll burn less gas, for example. If we waste less clean water, we'll have more clean water. But these are the easy examples. That would be the low-hanging fruit. Instead of just doing less, we have to find ways to do more with less. That's the key to the future. You are University of Massachusetts Lowell graduates. You really are among the best in the world at thinking about new arrangements, new tools, and new, elegantly engineered designs to reach for what I like to call the high-hanging fruit, the big prizes, the great big prizes. And that's what we want you to do for us. I'm not kidding. Change the world in new, exciting, and big ways. Wait till you see them off your coast. Wind turbines are cool. You're going to love them. They'll be a source of pride. The solar cell that powers my never-winded watch is around 10% efficient, which is plenty for a watch. But what if it were 50% efficient or 80% efficient? Here's hoping UMass Lowell material scientist becomes the inventor or the venture capitalist or the lawyer who would grasp the value of this discovery and protects the idea. He or she would change the world. If you could invent a better battery, one that can store more energy using less exotic metal, one that could handle the heat without the loss of performance or just plain catching on fire, which you don't want in a battery. We could store energy from the wind and the sun and have it available whenever we need it. We would change the world, all right. But if you were the inventor or the venture capitalist or the attorney that protected it, you not only would change the world, there's a very good chance you would, dare I say it, get rich! It is sobering for me, and perhaps for more than a few of your parents, to consider that many of you all, UMass Lowell University graduates, know more physics than Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein did. You all know more about the universe than Galileo or Copernicus knew. I can guarantee you that significant discoveries will be made in your lifetime that will change the world. We hope some of you sitting here today will be the ones that make those discoveries. Imagine this. When I was a kid, no one had a good theory as to what happened to the ancient dinosaurs. The best scientific exploration sounded like a fairy tale. My second grade teacher, Mrs. McGonigal, read it to us. The dinosaurs had small brains. They were stupid. So mice and bats beat up the dinosaurs and took their food. Really. But in my lifetime, everybody, we discovered the meteoric impact crater near Chicxulub, Mexico. The ejecta from that collision shot out over a diameter bigger than the Earth itself. It went halfway to the moon. It was like science fiction, except it was real. And by the way, as a result of that discovery and last year's airburst over Chelyabinsk, Russia, and the very near miss of asteroid 2012 DA-14, people are at last appreciating the astonishing threat of an asteroid impact. You all are the first generation of engineers, scientists, educators, and foreign policy wonks who can get humankind to do something about an incoming asteroid. It is the only preventable natural disaster. What are you going to do? You're going to have a kinetic impactor, a light sail, solar sail spacecraft, a swarm of rock vaporizing lasers in space. It's going to have to be something someday. So we are counting on you. I'm claiming that there will be similar world-changing discoveries in the coming years, in your lifetimes. For example, recently, we've come to know that the universe is bigger than anyone ever thought. Not only that, it's getting bigger faster. Its expansion is accelerating. And do you know why? No one knows why. If a UMass Lowell engineer or scientist could figure it out, he or she may be able to control energy in a way that science fiction writers have only dreamed about. Maybe you all will find the darkons. You know, the darkons, the particles of dark. We've got dark matter, we've got dark energy, and you know, in physics, we love our particles. We love our neutrons, our photons, our tau mesons. Why not darkons? To exchange dark energy. I mean, to say nothing of the elusive Higgs, who doesn't love that. Darkons are they're just a little physics idea that I'm working on. I'll keep you posted. Along with the evidence of common sense, you know, my parents often remarked, common sense is not that common. Don't count on it. But researchers have proven scientifically that humans are all one people. We are one species. We're a lot like dogs in that regard. If a Great Dane interacts, can we say interact? Yeah, interacts. If a Great Dane interacts with a Chihuahua, you get a dog. That's all you get. I mean, some of my best friends are dogs, but all you're going to get is a dog. They're all one species. The same with us, everybody. The color of our ancestors' skin and ultimately my skin and your skin is a consequence of ultraviolet light, of latitude, and of climate. There really is no such thing as race. We are one species, each of us much, much more alike than we are different. We all came from Africa. Thank you. We are all made of the same stardust. We are all going to live and die on the same planet, this pale blue dot in the vastness of space. Along with all the stuff about making new great discoveries and changing the world, I'd like to give you some advice. I mean, it's your commencement, for crying out loud. Just some plain old advice, like if you smell fresh paint, don't walk under the ladder. Wear shoes in a thumbtack factory. And don't try to smoke in the rain. In fact, don't try to smoke at all. And let me say congratulations, UMass Lowell, it's smoke-free. Now, so here's what I think is an unusual piece of advice. But if you're going to get a bucket of water thrown in your face, untuck your shirt. I mean, you wouldn't think it would make that much difference. A cotton shirt like this one is hydrophilic. Water is going to stick to it, true enough, but a shirt tail, even a water-loving shirt tail, directs a great deal of that bucket blast around your waistband, so you get a lot less cold water in your trousers. I know this to be true because I did it many times on the science show. Mine was a unique experience. I'm telling you this just because it's not useful, I mean, obviously, but because there is a big idea here. Everyone you will ever meet knows something that you don't. And this is troubling for many of us know-it-alls. Auto mechanics today know how to debug software. Cooks know how to use copper to control the proteins in eggs. Bricklayers have an intimate knowledge of the strength of materials that most of us will never have. So respect their knowledge, learn from them. It will bring out the best in both of you. And by the way, once in a while, you've got to pick up other people's trash. Once in a while, to do a good job, you got to take a bucket of water to the face. Now, along with all this troubling business of climate change, along with this clearly sage advice, as the CEO of the Planetary Society, I want you all to keep looking up. Keep looking up and out into the cosmos. Question things. There are two questions that we all ask. And I say if you meet people that say they've never asked these two questions, they're lying to you. They're kidding you. Where did we come from? Where did we all come from? And are we alone? Those two deep questions drive us all through our whole lives. And to answer those two questions, we have to continue to explore outer space. When I was in school, I had a remarkable professor, Carl Sagan. He spoke often about, I did. Yeah. I was just, look, everybody, I was just some guy in the back of the room. I was not, anyway, Carl Sagan spoke often about the possibility of life on other worlds. Well, my friends, class of 2014, it's possible that in the next few years, the extraordinary will happen. It's possible in the next few years we may discover evidence of life, some sort of fossil Martian microbe, a Mars probe perhaps, on that other world. It would utterly change this one. It would change the way each and every one of us thinks of his or her place in the cosmos, our place in space. We are very hopeful at the Planetary Society that we're going to send a mission to the moon of Jupiter, Europa, which has geysers spewing seawater into outer space. What if we found some sort of Europanian plankton? It would change everything. It would change the way each and every one of us thinks about our place in space. Now, when you put a message in a bottle and toss that bottle in the ocean, you might have some vague hope that it will be returned to you someday from someone in some exotic place, like Bacalhani, or Yangshen, or Buzzards Bay. But perhaps you're hoping to remotely touch someone you'll never meet. The Spirit, Opportunity, and Curiosity rovers, which are on Mars, are each fitted with a photometric calibration target, a test pattern for the cameras, which also serves as a sundial. And along the aluminum edge of each Mars dial, it says in very small letters, "To those who visit here, we wish a safe journey and the joy of discovery." And that, my friends, is the essence of science. The joy of knowing. That's what drives us. That's science. It brings out the best in us. It makes our species worthy of the future. And I often reflect on the words of my third grade teacher, Mrs. Cochran, and she told us, there are more stars in the sky than grains of sand on the beach. And there are, by any measure, a lot of grains of sand on a beach. I mean, they're more than you can count, for sure, but for most of us, they're more than you can imagine. I stood on the beach, it was in Delaware that summer, and I got to thinking about her assertion. Does she mean all the grains of sand that I can see? Does she mean the ones I can't see, the ones that must cover the beach a few meters deep? I mean, when the tide goes out, there's more sand, and I look behind me, there's sand, sand, sand. I look this way, 1,000 nautical miles that way, there's sand. Are you telling me, Mrs. Cochran, there are more stars than all of that? Well, apparently there are, by about a factor of 10. So, in that long ago moment, I was paralyzed by self-doubt. I mean, I'm just a little kid, standing on a beach, and that beach is one of many beaches on a planet that turns out to be, in the cosmic scheme of things, pretty small planet. A speck, really. Furthermore, my home speck, the Earth, is orbiting a star that is completely unremarkable. It's just another speck. And it's in a galaxy full of other specks, with a vastness of space full of more galaxies. I am a speck on a speck, orbiting a speck, with a bunch of other specks in the vast emptiness of specklessness. But wait, But wait. I realize that with my brain, which is only this big, and if you ever met him, my old boss, quite a bit smaller. But with your brain, you can imagine all of that. With your brain, you can understand the process of science that has enabled us to make these remarkable discoveries and build this remarkable facility and have these remarkable traditional academic traditions. With your brain, you can realize that this is wonderful. This is remarkable. This is venerable. This is worthy of respect. So, class of 2014, here's wishing you the joy of discovery. Keep reaching, keep seeking, keep using your abilities to bring out the best in those around you and in yourself. As you do, you can and you will, dare I say it, change the world! This has been an honor. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Oh, I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, thank you. Go get them, class of 2014! Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ahmed Abdel Al, and I am the Provost of UMass Lowell. I would like to add my congratulations to those you have already heard today. Completing your degree program has required sacrifice, commitment, and hard work. We are indeed proud of your accomplishments, and we join your family and friends in applauding you. Yeah. Candidates for baccalaureate degrees